John Sanei,
Mark Sham.
what is the number one nugget that we could lead off with for the audience? What is the one thing you'd want to teach someone off the bat?
To explain that our brain states determine how we see the world ahead of us. I just learned this from my 2 weeks with Dr. Dispenza, that our brain states actually determine if we're on time, if we're creative, or if we're in danger and never have enough time. And this realization has kind of changed everything for me.
I mean, that's quite profound. I want to dig into it before we get into the other detail. How do you define brain states or give it context to the audience?
Well, there's 5 brain states. There's beta, alpha, theta, delta, and gamma. Let's forget about gamma. Delta is sleeping. Let's forget about that as well. Theta is that half asleep, half awake. Kind of when you go for a Reiki, or if you we wake up in the morning, you're in theta. But the two that I want to focus on is the beta and the alpha. We as humans have been trained to be analytical. And we have high levels of anxiousness and high levels of frustration because of all the change around us. Because of those things, we are almost full-time in high beta. When you're in a high beta brain state, you're zoned in and focused in looking for danger. That's anxiousness, that's frustration. And when you're zoned in looking for danger, you can't be creative. You are in survival mode, not in creation mode. And so in order to become broad in your perspective, to connect the invisible dots that nobody else can see, to be truly creative and disruptive, you need to be in an alpha brain state. In an alpha brain state, you have more than enough time. There's always new creative things to do. You always look for collaboration. Your critical voice inside your head switches off. And now you're in a state to create for the future.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. I follow Dr. Joe quite a bit, actually because of you, from a few years ago. I want to delve one more deeper. So you've kind of mentioned these 2 main brain states that you're talking about. How do people then move away from that beta brain state? What are some of the practices or the things that people then do? What would you suggest?
Well, the first thing we must realize is we're addicted to beta brain states. That's the first thing, is that when you're not feeling anxious and when you're not feeling like there's danger around, you feel like you're not doing anything. And so what has happened is our personalities created our personal realities. And our personal realities are imprinted with this thinking, acting, and feeling in a high brain state process. And so actually we are stuck in a loop of high beta brain states without even realizing we are.
Got you.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is when you want to come off the addiction of high beta brainwaves, it's very tough. It's not an easy thing to do. And so the process of meditation and understanding that when you wake up in the morning and you think about your life has been imprinted from your past. So you're continuously in your past, which means that the more familiar your past is, the more predictable your future becomes. And so the only place that you can actually create from is from the unknown, where you're nobody, nowhere, no time. When you go into that state of total blankness, from there you can start creating and rehearsing the emotions, the behaviors, the habits that you want to have throughout the day. So it's a process of becoming nobody, nowhere, no time through a process of meditation, a process of rehearsing the new emotional and habit states that you want for the rest of the day, and then catching yourself throughout the day where you find yourself going back to that fight or flight, that drama, that I never have enough time, that anxiousness, that shallow breathing. That's an addiction we are stuck in that we don't even know we are. So it's a process, there's a formula to follow. And that's why meditation becomes such an important thing. I did see the other day you're meditating with Lundy for 20 minutes a day, and I think it's fantastic. I would suggest you move it up to 40 or 50 as soon as possible, because the more time you can spend in the unknown, the more time you have to create the reality you want.
Yeah, and it is so true. What we've been doing besides the morning sessions, we've even started doing some of the evenings, the longer ones, because part of it is even just helping with my sleep. I go to bed with a less busy brain, as you can imagine.
That busy brain's called high beta, by the way.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. But what's really been interesting is that, to your point, I've been following his Joe Dispenza's guided meditations. And where it used to be a bit of an annoyance to do at first, I really look forward to them. It's so funny because when I think about this person talking about this right now, 5 years ago, Mark would be having a bit of a dig at this guy. But I really look forward to it. It's not a hug anymore to do it.
Well, if you understand what the description of meditation is, or the meaning, It means to become familiar with. And when you spend time in that state, you're actually becoming familiar with your true self, not with the brain states that's kept you in a loop that you don't even like into a process. And so you're looking forward to them because that's really where you get to spend time with Mark, the true Mark.
Yes.
And so the more time you do in that, the more you got access to your genius and who you really are. And the reason that most people don't like meditating, or my favorite is their brain is too busy, they just can't meditate, meaning that our brains are very slow and that we can meditate. The truth is all they're explaining is that they can't manage the wild stallion that is their brain. Their brain is telling them how to behave, and they can't actually manage it to sit down and to calm down. And so it's a process. It's like fitness that we have to do. So I'm on about 2 to 3 hours a day now in the mornings and the evenings. And just by spending the 2 weeks with him in Mexico, I learned the incredible importance of doing that. And now that you understand the theory of it, the practice of it becomes a totally different practice.
Last question before I get to the book. So you obviously went and spent this time with Joe Dispenza, and unlike the other events that you've attended, which are the week-long retreats, this was almost to learn and understand this and to teach it back. Is that your goal ultimately from here?
So the first week was corporate training, so train the trainer, and there were 70 people from around the world, and he lectured us. And you want to see 70 people panic? On day 3, they told us we have to memorize verbatim 2 or 3 pages of the curriculum. There were 70 adults panicking all at the same time, including myself. And I got 3 pages about moving from high beta to alpha. And so I recorded my voice on my phone, put it to my ears, and I walked 6 kilometers that night until like 1 in the morning, just listening to it constantly over and over and over, almost restructuring and recalibrating the brain, the way your brain works. And then the next day we had to present to Dr. Joe his own work back to him in front of 70 people. And it was quite a thing, let me tell you. As an adult, when's the last time you actually memorized anything?
Yeah, no,
never. You never do. But what has happened since is the theory, the practicality, and the structure of the way my brain works around understanding, spending time in the unknown, understanding alpha and brain has just been fundamentally different. So the first week was train the trainer. The second week was a normal 7-day week long. And by absolute luck, I sat with somebody in the training course that is very close to him. And now I've started being invited to much closer circles with him. So now I'm going to Costa Rica. There's only a handful of people that are going to be sitting around him and doing courses. So I'm extending my work with him and understanding how to do this process much deeper.
But look, you've been an advocate for his work for the longest time, and you've actively put yourself out there. I can't even count the number of retreats, the week-long retreats that you've actually been to, especially when you're coming from South Africa. It's a farther distance.
Very.
Oftentimes there's a time change. There's a lot to it. So you have equally put yourself into that position to do it. We could talk about that for hours, but for time's sake, I want to flip, because I've been around your journey from the beginning, from What's Your Moonshot, and here we are 5 versions later, not of the same book, but now we've got Who Do We Become? And you've become quite prolific as an author. You know, you've been writing almost or absolutely a book a year. And this one seems to have, I know each of them have their differences, and I've been through all of them with you. This one seems to have hit a spot for me because this seems to be you at your most vulnerable. Clearly something's come from what's happened over the last 2.5 years, but I want to flip it to you. Why does this book come out? What is the catalyst for Who Do We Become?
I think what I found is that most people are complaining about the change that's happening. People are stressing about the fact that the future doesn't look like the past. And nobody's asking the question of, how do I evolve myself to meet the future? Everybody's complaining about the future, not saying, well, what do I need to upgrade, let go of, recalibrate to prepare for the future? And so the question is who are you choosing to become to meet this future at the highest point possible with your expression of your genius? And so the book is really about my own journey into evolving at a rapid pace through the process of COVID-19. I know that many relationships took strain, many businesses took strain, our internal dialogues were at their highest peak of anxiousness, and we all took an incredible hit. And so this book is a journey of my hit, of my depression, of my loneliness. And one of the passages I have in there is making the bed with my mom and almost breaking down into, not tears, but feeling very sorrowful for myself, because I even joked to my mom and said, I used to mock losers of men in their 40s making their bed with their moms, and here I am making my own bed with you, Mom. I mean, like, you're still making my bed. I'm like 45, and like, you're making my bed with me, And it was a huge aha moment for me that here I am, and everything I didn't want to have happen to me is happening to me, And so it's my journey through the process of evolving into a newer version of myself, and I've just turned 47, closer to 50 now, and I think there's a lot that has evolved within me, and I wanted to share that journey with people. And I think most people are reading it surprised at the fact that I've suffered from that depression or from that loneliness. And I think it's always strange, because people think, and I'm sure with you as well, that they kind of think that you've got it all sorted, you know what I mean? And we don't. We really don't.
Yeah, we were around together when COVID first hit, and so you put your best foot forward. You're trying to figure it out. And then when you realize, okay, this is actually going to be around for a while, and we have no clue when it's coming to an end, then you finally have that time to go through those different stages of guilt, not guilt, of grief. And I know I got beaten up.
Yeah.
But what a beautiful process.
Yes.
In my happiness workshops, I just keep saying all the time that it's about up there with the most painful adult experiences in my life. It's also the best thing that happened to me. But clearly a lot of processing to go through. I'd like to delve into some of yours.
Well, the thing is you think it's a great process now because you actually dealt with the issues. Yes. And I think that many people in the world are stuck in denial, anger, and bargaining. They aren't arriving at grief and acceptance. And we can see how angry the world is. And it's that anger that is unprocessed grief. So people are stuck. And that was the point of the book, is look, we all in this together. Can you evolve through the 5 processes of grief? Don't avoid sadness. Get to the point where you mourn courageously. And I speak about Sean McKenna's dad passing. And I remember when Frank passed, Sean asked me to speak at the funeral, and I sobbed my way through this flippant speech. And I just thanked Frank at the funeral for helping me heal and sob so many sobs I never got to have. And when you are able to allow yourself to move into that space of sorrow deeply, you heal layers of stuff that you haven't healed for years and years and years. And so allow yourself to mourn courageously so that you can access post-traumatic growth. And you can't look at the strange new world we're moving into with optimism if you haven't dealt with the sorrow.
Absolutely.
And so you're optimistic because you've dealt with it. And how many people do you know that haven't dealt with it?
Right.
They're alcoholics, they're eating too much, they're taking too many drugs, they're on mood enhancers, they're addicted to exercise, whatever the case may be, is they're not actually sitting with that pain and that sorrow. And so I start the book off with anguish, the whole point of anguish and how important it is to feel anguish. And so that's kind of the beginning part of it. And I think most people are taken aback by the fact that, I'm sharing really vulnerably about that state that I was in for many months.
I mean, you're so speaking my language, because obviously we went through very similar things. We lived very similar lives, although we're very different people at times. But as you're talking about these things, I'm reliving those 2.5 years, partially for the good. And I remembered some days where I thought, okay, I'm good. And then I'd wake up tomorrow and I'm back to like throw chairs at windows angry. Yeah. Like it was unbelievable. But looking back, allowing that time to feel that. And I had luckily been trained a little bit earlier before that around a big push of mine was sitting in the fire of your emotions and feeling what you feel. And especially I think so many men, obviously other women too, but in this case, how so many people see it as weakness to express or process these emotions. So I listened to you talk about sitting in anguish, and it's so, for some people, hearing this for the first time, it'll sound so counterintuitive, and yet it is absolutely on point.
Well, the truth is, if you sit with an emotion, it runs out of energy. If you avoid an emotion, it lingers with you.
Yeah.
And so really it's about sitting within whatever emotion you have, sit with it for a while, and you'll be incredibly amazed that it'll disappear after a while. And the reason we stop being happy after a while, because you sit with happiness, and eventually it runs out, If you avoided happiness, it'll be like lingering behind you, like, hey, see me, feel me. So yeah, we've been somehow, I don't know why, we've been trained to avoid negative emotions. There's actually no point to it,
Yeah.
But yeah, here we are forced to have been dealing with it,
Yeah, and so, in the beginning I was looking the other day because we did a an interview together when I was still at WeWork, and that you were saying even back then, we can't just go back to a post-COVID, like a pre-COVID world. Just can't go back. And I watched that video again, and I was so blown away by how relevant it still is 2.5 years later, because what you're saying is true, that so many people haven't dealt with it. 5 books later, this being the 5th, I'm just so curious about how maybe your writing process has changed. How easy or difficult, topic aside, was it to get a 5th book out? Is it something that you're just so in practice and tune with? Is it different every time? I think so many people are curious when you can literally release a book a year, what that process is like from 1 to 5.
It's changed, eh? And it's a great question. Actually, I haven't ever really thought about it. It's changed dramatically. Is the way I express myself has changed, the way I have mastered certain ways of writing and expressing and speaking and finding more lyrical, waxing more lyrically, because it's just practice, right? I've been practicing it for so long. I'm also finding a lot more confidence in the way I think about the world, where I'm truly trying to share my own journey, not trying to teach. And I think this was a real part of this book, is I wanted it to be a warm conversation between me and a friend, where I wasn't trying to tell you what to do. I was just explaining to you what was going on for me. And I think that's become a big thing, because Future Next was very much a process of speaking to the world and saying, look, these are the things we should be doing to evolve through to Future Next. Whereas this book is much more about, look, everything I knew in self-development, and you know me, I've done an extensive amount of self-development from when I was about 30 years old, and nothing prepared me for this. You know what I mean? I got knocked out. I don't think everybody got knocked out. That's the point of it, right?
Yes.
But I think ultimately the book is not so much about anguish. It's much more about optimism. And what I want people to realize is that we are about to arrive and move into an incredibly strange time for human beings. And what I mean by that is everything we once implicitly trusted is falling away. And we need to become optimistic about change. We can't be pessimistic about change, you know. AI over the last, and you'll see the talk I'll do for the Tryst next week, AI has exponentially become smarter over the last just month. The things that have happened with AI in the last month alone, we were expecting to happen in 5 years, you know. And so there's so much coming that we didn't expect, that's making the world around us unfamiliar, wild in many ways. And if we aren't able to look at these things optimistically, we will be petrified, anxious, and become irrelevant incredibly quickly.
And it's clear to me from the work we do together and separately, the only thing we are now guaranteed is change. It's like there's no other way around it. So you spoke about starting with anguish, which I can totally see the reason for starting there. You talk about optimism. Where to from there?
Well, the second part of the book is called Abnormal.
Okay.
So the 3 parts are anguish, abnormal, and adventure. And so if I just go to adventure is the skills of the future. And in it, I speak about the fact that AI and technology is making everything around us free. I mean, from the beginning, I've been speaking about Jeremy Rifkin's work around zero marginal cost society. And it's exponentially getting faster. You know, we got more and more and more. You know, I canceled Netflix because I don't watch it anymore. Because I just flick, I'm bored. Apple, flick, bored. I've just canceled all those subscriptions. I'm just on YouTube. And what does YouTube cost me? 78 Rand a month on my premium account. That's it, 78 Rand. It's like $5, bro. I mean, that's not even a coffee. So we are seeing this free aspect eclipse capitalism. And so every rudimentary thing that we used our left brains for is becoming free. And so the real adventure, the formula I share is about accessing intuition, excitement, fascination, wisdom, experimentation, and meditation. And these are the things that will skill us up for what's coming next. And most adults listening to this will think, well, John, you know, I can't pay rent with intuition, bro. I mean, what am I going to do with that? And the easiest way for us to apply this is do it for your kids. Now you can start applying it much easier. So the last part is adventure, and it's really about the formula that I've been practicing and I've learned from Dr. Joe and just other things that I've learned. But the abnormal section is I break down the abnormality that we are going to be experiencing over the next 10 years. And a big part of it is artificial intelligence. And I don't know if you've just seen, but DALL-E 2 was released a few weeks ago, and DALL-E 2 is an original art making platform by AI. unbelievable.
I was blown away when I saw it.
Totally.
I couldn't
Your
believe
brain it just blew up.
And you and I both worked to look at that work. And when
Yeah.
I saw it, I was like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
Exactly.
Have you ever seen a polar bear playing bass? Or a robot painted like a Picasso? Didn't think so. DALL-E 2 is a new AI system from OpenAI that can take simple text descriptions like a koala dunking a basketball and turn them into photorealistic images that have never existed before.
And so wait, let me just take it 2 steps ahead. If you think about GPT-3, which is the original text machine, so you can put any art, you can say to GPT-3, I want an article written about Sudanese woman carrying water over 10 kilometers in a comedic style in 10,000 words. 4 seconds, you have an essay, original. Copy, paste, put in Google, never been written before. That's author's gone. That's why I don't even know if I'm going to write another book, because there's no point. Because I can just put it into GPT-3 and it can write a whole book for me. So that's the first thing. Now, if you take GPT-3 and make it GPT-4, and take DALL-E 2 and make it DALL-E 3, which is just about to happen over the next year, right? You can tell GPT-3, I have a 12-year-old daughter who loves to BMX and skate. She loves the color pink and purple. She likes dogs and cats. I want you to write me a movie script where she's the hero and she becomes the hero through using courage as the main theme. You then take that original script that takes 4 seconds to be written and you put it into DALL-E 3, and DALL-E 3 will make you a small movie. So if you think about what's going to happen is that Hollywood's gone, Netflix is gone, ad agencies are gone, copywriters are gone, authors are gone. This is now, we're talking 2 years. This is not like something that's coming. So if you just understand what's coming, the strangeness, if you just take what's happening now and extrapolate it ahead, plus next year we arrive at longevity, velocity, escape. In other words, for every year we are alive, technology keeps us alive for 2 years. For every 2 years, 4 years. For every 4 years, 5 years. So we're about to move to 160 and 180 years old with all this AI coming on track. We have no idea what's coming at us. And if you don't manage your trauma, your emotions, and actually start to become optimistic about the future, you're going to be in a very dark place very soon.
There's so many directions I could go in. I love all of it, but I think your fundamental message, the starting point of ask, who do we become? It's so pertinent. I know I've seen it in my own work because I'd started doing the happiness workshop just before COVID. I felt like God was like, oh, you want to talk about happiness?
Here we go. Yeah.
There's a sprinkle of virus. Good luck. Go practice.
Yeah.
But I've just watched, and because of, I'm only mentioning the happiness workshop because then I've been exposed to so many people. And the other side of it is that so many more people are taking things like mental health seriously, people's mentality, their psychology, their emotional state. The companies, it seems to me on my side, are willing to spend so much more money. So, sometimes these problems need to come about to then create these solutions. And I think this is such a pertinent question. And to be fair, this question, who do we become, has been rumbling in your heart for quite some time. Because I've been at some of your talks way before COVID, where the thinking was, we can't tell you what to think, we need to tell you how to think. But even beyond thinking, we need to teach you who to be. I remember that so vividly from some of the talks that we even did together.
Right.
And then this global pandemic and many other facets with it came about to bring this forward. And I think the timing is never been more perfect for this question.
I was listening to an interview with James Clear and Mark Manson. And they asked them in one interview, it was amazing having both of those superstar authors in one interview. And they said to both of them, what makes a bestseller? Like, how did you make it? They both said at pretty much the same time, we have no idea. And what they meant by that, and they qualified it by saying timing of where the world is, when the book comes out, what the tone is required. And we know this with businesses, timing is the number one thing with any business, right? And I feel that this book's timing is just hitting the sweet spot. And there is no Mark Manson bullying all the charts around the world, because my last book had Mark Manson competing at 1 and 2. And so my book just got lost. But there's nothing major that's out, and it seems to be hitting a sweet spot. And I'm really happy because a lot of people are responding to me with it being heartfelt and it being vulnerable. And I think to meet people at that space, and my mom said it often, she said, when you write a book from the heart, it gets received at the heart. And I think this is really what this book is about. And we try to make the cover exciting, energetic, and sort of like I wanted it to almost like vibrate off the shelf. And I think we got that right as well. And it
I could be off about this. Is this the first time you put your own face on the book?
Yeah. Oh, well, Foresight had half my face.
Oh, it had half, yes, that's right.
And
That's
this
right.
one, I didn't want to put my face on the book, and then I got a new publisher. And the publisher said, no, we want your face on the book. I was like, no, I'm not going to put my face. I was actually went through a whole process with them. Like, I don't want to
Yes.
put my face on the book. They're like, no, we want your face on the book.
Yeah.
They were like, that was adamant from them. And they said, look, you can do whatever else you want. We just think that it's time that you like position yourself into it. And they're really happy, you know, and they're very supportive of the process. And they also have a sister publisher in London, which is also a big part of this process to actually move into that European market now.
Yeah, look, one solitary subjective perspective, I think it was a great move. I think from the first day I saw it come out, it's, you know, even for me with all your books, because I kind of feel a kinship toward everything you've done. I loved What's Your Moonshot. It was the first time you did it. That thinking was so fresh. But as we're in a different time, this is by far my favorite cover.
Wow, thank you.
I think you've done a great thing.
Thank you.
And I think with your books, you know, this is actually mine. I'm quite excited. I get it. But why I wanted to have you in today is because I know that you master something by teaching it. And I know that your goal is always to take, this book isn't about being heard. It's about helping. And there's so many people who write books, but why I am excited for this book and for us to do this thing together with the book is there's always this deep wisdom that comes from, I love when you said when something's written from the heart, your mom's a wise woman.
She is.
You know, when something's written from the heart, it's received from the heart. And I'm looking forward to enjoying this version of John, as I've enjoyed all the other versions. But I'm a heartfelt person, and when I look at this and I hear your tone around it, it hits a spot for me. I think for timing's sake, I want to leave you with a parting thought and a last word. So that's your close-up camera over there. And the two things I'd like you to do is, I'd love for you to just give the audience, this can be any parting thought you'd like to leave them, and then a call to action on your part. Do you want them to go to your website or follow you on social or the book, whatever? The close-up is yours.
Well, I mean, that's quite a big question to think about. I think we sit in an incredible opportunity for us as human beings to evolve at massive pace. And the evolvement that we're doing next is not about a logical IQ improvement. It's about consciously awakening parts of ourselves that have been not accessed. Software that's been sitting latent inside our heads that's only now starting to become available to us through processes of breathing, of meditation, of just understanding that our brain has so much more capability when it's working in coherence with our hearts. And the practice for us all to take on with vigor is to bring coherence between our hearts and our heads, to heal our pasts, because our future is not set in stone. Our future is based on how we come into the presence. And when we are able to release the past, we're able to come into the present more, bring that energy into this focus, so that our future becomes an incredibly exciting place rather than something that we're scared of and try and shy away from. And the practice is always going to be one of bringing your heart and brain into coherence. So if that doesn't mean anything directly to you, YouTube it, Google it, look at Dr. Joe's website or his videos. He explains the theory of what it means to bring both of these into coherence. And when you bring them into coherence, you elevate. And when you elevate, synchronicities become so obvious. Your ability to connect dots that you didn't see otherwise become so obvious. And your ability to be collaborative and calm in situations of stress becomes so second nature. And so this becomes a practice of increasing our consciousness, not increasing our IQ. And so everything you've known from the past becomes less and less relevant, and how we explore this new coherence becomes more and more relevant. So join me on social, join me on my website. Love to share all of this stuff with you guys as often as possible, so we can all increase in this sort of consciousness together. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Only a pleasure. John Sanei, team guys, this is the close-up over here. This is the book, Who Do We Become? I've seen it all over in airports, in all the exclusive books. Thank you for giving some of your time to come through today. Thank you for the help that you're going to still give with the small businesses and what have you. And my only closing thought is, that's it. Go get a copy, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the tone change. That's it from us. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Mark.
Ladies and gentlemen, please will you welcome Mr. John Sanei!
Futures specialist and strategist.
Singularity University faculty member John Sanei.
that we need to move away from knowledge and safety and move to wisdom and curiosity.
Here we are in the largest, biggest transformation and transition any of us have experienced.